Hey, what's up everybody? It's Christian with Reaper Disc, and today it's such a nice day outside that I decided to get out of the studio for a little bit and bring you this entire video here on the field. I'm out today with one of Discmania's newest releases, the Neo Paradigm. The Paradigm is a 12-speed, fast, glidey, neutral to slightly overstable distance driver. Discmania says the Paradigm is going to allow players that aren't necessarily gifted with the fastest arms in the world to still be able to accomplish and achieve that perfect S-shot or that good full flight that everyone wants to be able to do. Unfortunately, not having a big arm sometimes limits your ability to do that. Discmania says that this disc is going to allow even those players with a little bit shorter arms to be able to still achieve that full flight out of the disc. This Neo plastic is really good feeling. It's kind of grippy right now. It's about 85 degrees full sun at the current time, so it is a little gummier than normal. But even at room temps and a little cooler, it still has really good grip and a slight bit of flex. It's not until this disc gets really cold that it starts getting stiff, and even then it still has decent grip. So I haven't got to throw the Paradigm yet, so I'm taking you guys along with me for its first ride. From what I understand, it's going to be very similar to the end of a turn, glidey, able to get a turn out of it, but still have a decent fade at the end. Flight numbers here are going to be 12, 6, negative 1.52. So it's going to carry a little further, have a little extra glide than your typical 12-speed drivers. It's going to have that little bit of high-speed turn, except maybe just a touch more than normal, and it's going to fade a little mellower than your typical high-speed drivers. All in all, it should give a dead straight, maybe a little flippy flight for those advanced arms, and for the little bit slower throwers out there, it's still going to allow you to get that full flight and S-shot. So let's start off with a stock Hyzer. This is going to be mid-power, not necessarily a full power shot, just with a stock Hyzer release. I want to see how this is going to flip up and fly while thrown on a Hyzer angle. Alright, so throwing on a Hyzer, it did flip up out of my hand and got a little bit of coast left to right. It didn't really have a lot of true turnover. For the most part, it stayed flat the entire time. It never really actually got over onto an Anhyzer angle. Instead, it stayed flat and just kind of drifted before straightening back out and then having that good mellow fade at the end. This isn't something that is going to really kick up out of a Hyzer and go all the way over on the edge. So, you can trust throwing it hard with a little bit of angle and knowing that it's not going to kind of get squirrely on you. However, it will flip up and ride straight. That extra glide really carried it forward, and it ate up some pretty good distance. So I'm going to throw it flat now. I'm going to start it out here over to the left and just rip it flat. I may try to give it just a little bit of height to keep it off the ground a little and see how much it wants to turn over. But for the most part, I'm expecting it to get a decent amount of turnover before flattening back out and having a good finish back at the end again. So I'm going to start it off over here on this side, that way you can see the full flight and I don't get in the way of that on my follow through. Alright, so that actually had a little more flip and turn out of it than I thought it would. There is a touch of a headwind breeze, but for the most part, that thing actually flipped over a lot more than I originally anticipated. It still did glide and started to get back to flat there at the end of the flight, but never ever really finished. Now, if I gave this more height, it would probably come back a little at the end, but not really too much of an actual fade to speak of. Speaking of the wind, there's a little bit of it. So it's kind of been coming and going just in little bits, so I've been working around it. So here for the Anhyzer release, I'm going to have to, knowing what it did there, I'm going to actually have to get it a little higher and let it have more room to really get the flight out of it and not turn into a roller. All right, so I actually had to redo that one a lot. That took way longer than I thought it would to get this shot right. And that's because every time I got this up in the air, kind of no matter how much height I put on the disc, it always wanted to keep going down into a cut roller. It never really wanted to fight all the way back out. It always came down on edge. And I think it might have something to do with the plastic. So I have been noticing it is very hot outside today and in direct sunlight. There's not much cloud cover right above me, and there hasn't been the entire time I've been out here. Because of that, this plastic is getting very, very gummy and very soft. As I've continued to throw it, it's continued to get softer, and it's gotten more understable the more I've had it out. So that is definitely something you want to keep in mind and take into consideration, that the more this disc heats up and the softer it gets, the more understable it's going to become. You might actually find a use for that and be able to use it to your advantage. That's going to be completely up to you and how you utilize the disc. But for me, for this shot, I had to end up taking almost half power off. I was throwing this at maybe 50%, and it still didn't want to fight out. It wanted to hold the angle the entire time and barely got back to flat by the time it hit the ground. Still, it ate up a good bit of distance, went a decent ways, and still had a really pretty single angle Anhyzer the entire flight. Now I'm gonna really get on this now and see how far I can get it. I'm gonna give it full power, now taking into consideration it's a little more understable because it's really soft, being in the heat. So we'll kind of go with that and see just how it reacts when it's thrown full power. All right, so on power, the Paradigm is able to flip up and get a decent amount of turnover and continues just to cruise forward. That high glide rating really lets this thing eat up fairway before it starts slowing down and fading back at the end. As long as you can control the angles on this disc, it can go a really long way. All in all, I think this is going to be best suited for the intermediate player who's starting to get the arm speed to try the faster disc, but still doesn't quite have enough to get the really fast and, go-to distance drivers to start getting that full flight. Much like the Turn, this disc is really good for that intermediate level power. You can get a full flight out of this disc without having to throw it at, blistering speeds, and still get that good satisfying S shape out of your shots. The more advanced player might use this more as a tailwind driver, but at really high speeds it does get a little finicky and harder to hit some lines and get it to stay on angles and not want to turn over too much. So again, I think it's going to be best suited for the intermediate level players to really start getting new personal bests for distance and being a go-to all-out distance driver. What do you guys think of the Paradigm? Have you got to try it out yet? If so, what do you think? Leave me a comment down below and let me know. If you want a Paradigm for yourself, click the link in the description of this video to head over to reaperdisc.com and pick up one there. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. That way you can keep up with all of our new content that we're putting out, with new tutorials and a lot of discs we're getting reviewed and put up for you guys. Follow us on social media at ReaperDisc so you can keep up to date with new releases, exclusive drops, and restocks. Again, I'm Christian with ReaperDisc, and we'll see you guys in the next video.